Former lawyer to President Trump, Sidney Powell, has sketched out a little bit of what the January 6th plan actually was. Let's take a listen to this latest clip.
Yes, we were filing a 12th Amendment constitutional challenge to the process that the Congress was about to use under the Electoral Act provisions that simply don't jive with the 12th Amendment to the United States Constitution. And Justice Alito was our circuit justice for that. Louis Gohmert was the plaintiff in our lawsuit. And we were suing the vice president to follow the 12th Amendment as opposed to the Electoral Count Act, or Electoral College Act. So that was the main point. And Nancy Pelosi had finagled to file an amicus brief in it. There'd been inside goings on in Congress whereby I believe it was Steve Scalise and McCarthy kept her from being an actual party. She wanted to work her way into the case as a party, but somehow politically that didn't happen. But so she got notice when we made her filing because she wanted to file an amicus brief or had filed an amicus brief. And then, everything broke loose and she had to really speed up reconvening Congress to get the vote going before Justice Alito might have issued an injunction to stop it all, which is what should have happened.
and so it appears what she's trying to say is that they had Louis Gohmert, great plaintiff.
Naturally.
Who else do you want if you're going to go into a constitutional crisis than the Honorable Louis Gohmert? So they had Louis Gohmert as their plaintiff, and they're suing under the 12th Amendment, which is the Electoral College related amendment, saying that the vice president has to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
And they drew Justice Alito as their Supreme Court justice. And they're hopeful that Alito is going to issue some type of injunction and advise that the vice president must do X, Y, Z. The whole plot seems to have been foiled by Nancy Pelosi quickly reconvening the House, Mike Pence gaveling everything through. Things are certified, things move through, so yada yada yada, it's all over. But it does seem like at least it's a plan. But the Supreme Court had already rejected all of their efforts, so it seems like absolute wishful thinking at the very best that Alito would entertain Louis Gohmert's Hail Mary bid on January 6th.
None of this was ever going to work. I mean, I remember having conversations with Republicans, Trump supporters, even people in media while this is all happening, and I'm like, you do realize, right, that none of this is going to work. And they're like, well, wait and see. We got to wait and see. I'm telling you, 100% guarantee Joe Biden is going to be sworn in as the next president. Nothing you're saying will add up to anything. The Supreme Court will never hear this in 1 trillion years. And they kept saying, well, I don't know. How do you know? Because they won't. Because there's no argument. There's no team in place. This lady is crazy. All of these people are crazy whom Trump is relying on.
She's facing defamation charges out the wazoo.
I mean, Bill Barr knew it was not. He's been asked about, and I tried to explain. Yeah, he's the Attorney General, a conservative and a Trump supporter. He had Trump's back throughout his time in office, but because he's not completely insane, he understood there was no way, based on the arguments they were making, to have Trump somehow still be the president.
And we know that from Woodward's new book that Lindsey Graham entertained some of this. He went down to the White House. He was like, okay, you keep saying you've got all this evidence of fraud. Show it to me. Give me your best private presentation. And so they bring in their really smart guy who knows math, and they do a PowerPoint presentation to Graham. They're like, look, see, we've shown with our statistical analysis here that it's improbable that the actual results that have been tabulated could have mapped with all of these different things that we have here. And he's like, okay, show me the actual votes. You say dead people voted, name them.
Right.
And they'd throw out a couple of examples, and he would look closer at them and say, actually, this looks like somebody who voted by mail on October 1st, and then unfortunately, tragically died October 15th or whatever.
Right.
So you don't have fraud here. A. B. You have a couple hundred of these. like across the entire country.
Right. You needed thousands of them across multiple states.
And you need them in very particular states because he lost by like 7 million or whatever overall.
Yeah.
And so Graham, when they reconvene, he gives that speech where he says, I'm out. Like, I tried to hear him out. I tried to be helpful, but I'm out. I'm done. I mean, there's broken glass and blood all over the Capitol while he's speaking. Yeah. And so you're right. Like that was the reason that the Supreme Court is not going to hear this. The same reason that dozens of state courts who looked at this along the way, including Trump-appointed justices, were like, guys, there's nothing here. Like, and people who were willing to look at whatever evidence they could find to give Trump a second term were like, no.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I do think now there's a little bit of there's a lot in the mainstream media about fear that, well, what about next time? They're going to, the Trump people are going to try really hard and they're going to rig it, and our democracy is being corrupted and corroded, and that's the real threat. Like, it would probably fail just as badly as it failed this time. The threat is that Trump's just going to win. So that's what you should be concerned about, is that he cleanly wins the election. If they're concerned about the more sort of paranoid version of this.
And the difference could be, and this is long term, the additional threat to actually losing is if you have a party that is split down the middle over the question, even today, over the question of whether Trump won. If the faction that, in spite of all of the evidence, still believes Trump won, if that faction wins Secretary of State races around the country in Pennsylvania or Georgia or Arizona, and they win local boards of election races, and they are completely immune to reality and to facts, and let's say Sidney Powell is Secretary of State in Georgia or something.
Right.
Like, okay, now you actually have a constitutional issue. Yeah. Because she has demonstrated that there's no amount of information coming from every different direction that is going to change her mind.
Yeah, we'll see. I have a hard time believing enough of that is going to happen rapidly enough for that to be the real concern, rather than just an unpopular,
for sure.
elderly president losing out.
No, you have to win first to have it stolen from you.
Right.
So they should focus on that. But we will have more Rising for you right after this.